The State Information Technology Agency has become the focal point of a heated disagreement between Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi and Portfolio Committee Chairperson Khusela Diko. The clash stems from new regulations proposed by Malatsi that would allow government departments to procure IT services outside of the technology agency, a move he believes will boost efficiency and cut costs. However, Diko is concerned that the proposed directives seem to be a covert attempt to undermine empowerment legislation. Diko joins me now to discuss this. A very good afternoon to you, Ms. Diko. Thank you very much for your time. Let's put it out there. Is there bad blood between you and Mr. Malatsi?
Good afternoon, Vuyo, and good afternoon to your viewers. Thank you so much for inviting us on the program. There is absolutely no bad blood between myself and Minister Malatsi. In fact, we enjoy a very cordial relationship, a very constructive relationship. However, when issues of this nature arise, I think that we have always, as you would have seen in other previous disagreements that we've had, we will always engage those issues robustly. Because at the end of the day, we believe that both of us are doing our jobs, and his job is to execute laws and mine is to ensure that the portfolio committee plays oversight over his work. So I want to dispel any notion that says that there's bad blood of any kind between myself and Mr. Malatsi.
Of course. I mean, there's a bit of a context here which is raised to that speculation. You are a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC. He's a senior leader and now a minister from the Democratic Alliance. We all know what is going on currently. So you are saying that this is not a spillover from the frosty relations between the ANC and the DA.
Indeed, it's not. Vuyo, this is not the first time, as I indicated, that Minister Malatsi and I have disagreed on anything. I saw his statement earlier that he ends off with a jab at me saying that I'm auditioning for a possible executive role. I want to put it out there that let's not be too hard on Minister Malatsi. He's going through a difficult time with the GNU, obviously, at the brink, so to speak. I would understand that he's under pressure. However, the work that we need to do has to continue nonetheless. He remains a minister within the portfolio, and therefore we must continue to hold him accountable. And I raise that even in the context of this discussion, because I do understand that there seems to be a rush on his part to ensure that these regulations are gazetted. He appeared before the House, the National Assembly last week, and it was there that he made this announcement of the regulations. And regardless of what is happening in government, all of us have a responsibility to ensure that our work continues unhindered.
Let's kick off with the SITA issues and start with that one. You believe that the minister is acting beyond his legal ambit as the minister by insisting that private businesses should be allowed to actually procure services, and you reckon that is going to undo what went into ensuring that there is empowerment. Am I correct?
Okay, Vuyo, so I think the crux of the issue is whether the minister has got standing in law to effectively devolve the functions that are with SITA to government departments. There is a SITA Act as amended, and that Act in Section 7 is very clear on the mandatory and the non-mandatory services that SITA provides to government departments. Now, these services would include amongst them, issues of transversal systems within government and many other issues that I won't mention. Now, what Minister Malatsi seeks to do, because he feels that he's under pressure, perhaps from his government colleagues, about the inefficiencies at SITA, and yes, I will agree that there are many problems at SITA, but instead of seeking to fix the institution, he chooses to cripple it. Now, we are arguing that if the minister wants to change the functions of SITA, he needs to go through the process and amend the law, not to take the shortcuts that he wants to do by issuing regulations. He is absolutely not empowered in law to change a substantive condition of a legislation through regulations. Now, he wants to argue that that can be done because there must be efficiencies. We must remember, Vuyo, why SITA was established in the very first place. And that was to ensure cost efficiencies in government. It was to leverage economies of scale. But importantly, it was to ensure standardization of government systems, the digital transformation of the public service, as well as to eradicate duplication. Now, him going and wanting to issue these regulations, which would be illegal in our view, is to really seek to undo all of that. Because you take these functions down to departments, we're already dealing with duplication, we're already dealing with fragmentation, and his regulations would serve no purpose whatsoever. But even before we discuss the merits of the regulations, we're saying that he has got no standing in law to be able to do that.
But then we can't overlook, several allegations and concerns have been raised around the SITA's inefficiencies, corporate governance issues, tardiness. The list goes on and on.
Yes, of course. And that's the reason why in December, the Portfolio Committee undertook an emergency oversight visit to SITA because we were aware of the problems. They had been reported to us on a number of occasions. Now, what Minister Malatsi did when we went to visit SITA is that he said he would institute an investigation through the Public Service Commission. That investigation, in terms of references, I understand it, was still being discussed. We, as a portfolio committee, took a decision that we would institute an inquiry to seek to get to the bottom of those challenges, which, as we know, are governance issues. Are issues around operational inefficiencies. There are issues around the procurement system and allegations of corruption in that regard. None of these processes have been completed yet. And the point that we're making is that Minister Malatsi, instead of doing the heavy lifting and ensuring that he understands the underlying causes at the State Information Technology Agency, he chooses to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And we don't believe that that is how leadership is supposed to lead. On the governance issue, he has an opportunity now because he is about to appoint a new board. He can get fit for purpose expertise that is able to serve that board in that board with integrity. He has an opportunity to appoint a new managing director. He's not giving these people any opportunity to even try and do the work that he seems unwilling to do, which is really to ensure that he strengthens this organization. We have said to him on issues of operational inefficiency, since the fifth parliament, SITA has been saying that they're going to automate the systems in order to remove any human intervention there, ensure that the SLAs are met and that the turnaround times are as quick as possible. That still has not happened. What does Minister Malatsi do? He bows to pressure. He says he's going to devolve functions to departments. Vuyo, SITA, in your introduction, you mentioned the issue of private sector companies. Private sector companies do play a role at this point in time in IT services within government, but it is done through SITA. And that distinction is very important because SITA must ensure that government systems are able to speak to one another. And SITA must ensure that systems that are not supposed to be in private hands because of ensuring the security and sovereignty of state information, that is upheld. Now, when you take these issues back, you are just multiplying a problem that exists in one institution against many other government departments, provincial governments, and so forth. So we're really calling on the minister, firstly, not to break the law, but secondly, for him to do the work and ensure that he's able to implement a turnaround with SITA. And we believe that the conditions for him to do that are right.
Let's get to another issue, which has been a source of conflict between the two of you as well, which is the minister. I remember speaking to him, I think it was during the opening of Parliament, where he was at pains to explain that he is keen to make sure that there are new players that come into the communications, electronic communications space that would actually come in and help deal with some of the challenges that we are facing at the moment. And the name of Elon Musk's Starlink came up, and he was saying not that he wants to overstep, but here's a player that's keen to come on and actually help with some of the challenges that we're facing. He felt that the rules as they stand do kind of mitigate against that, and he is prepared to step in and look at how he can help in whatever way he can. Just your thoughts.
Vuyo, let me start off by saying that I have no doubt that Minister Malatsi is committed to delivering what I believe is a shared vision, that of a digitally transformed society that leaves no one behind. I also want to make the assurance that the Portfolio Committee supports the Minister and government in wanting to bring investment into this country and ensure that indeed we're able to grow our economy. The challenge that we are dealing with Minister Malatsi is that, and I've called him this before, when I said the minister seems to want to be a legal delinquent. The minister has all the right in the world to make the decisions that affect his portfolio, how that portfolio is run. However, he needs to do it within the prescripts and the law that govern the space. Now, when you're speaking about Starlink and Elon Musk, for example, I've heard the minister mixing two issues that have absolutely nothing to do with one another. He says that he wants to introduce equity equivalence into the ICT sector. Then he goes on to make an example about the automobile sector. He makes an example about companies, multinationals like Microsoft, to say that they are not subject to a 30% ownership equity shareholding in those companies, but rather the equity equivalence. Now, the difference between what Minister Malatsi is talking about and what Starlink essentially would have to do is that Starlink wants to play in the telecommunications, broadcasting, and postal services sector. And that sector is governed by the Electronic Communications Act. Section 9 of the Electronic Communications Act is very prescriptive. It says that no licensee, and this is where the difference is because they have to get a license, no licensees may hold less than 30% equity shareholding for historically disadvantaged persons. Minister Malatsi makes the same mistake where now he wants to issue a policy directive that effectively undermines the Electronic Communications Act in order to bypass that legislation and create room for Starlink in particular. And the reason I'm saying Starlink in particular is because there are many other companies who have satellite capability who have indicated to the regulator ICASA that they have an interest in joining the South African market. Some of these companies are American. We saw MTN conclude a successful test run on a direct satellite to phone link just the other week. You have companies from China, from Russia, from Europe, all of whom have not raised any issues with the laws of our country, because even in their own jurisdictions, they understand that their local ownership requirements, you have seen in the United States of America, the president there is busy trying to decide by himself who must be the local shareholder of TikTok. We have seen Starlink go to India, and there in India, they were forced by the government to partner with the two dominant mobile network operators in those countries. So there's nothing that South Africa is doing that is either untoward or unprecedented. And we are going to resist any attempt by the minister to try and change the law by stealth.
You're not at all giving him the benefit of a doubt that he could be meaning very well, but perhaps because of time pressures, because he really wants to deliver on his portfolio, and perhaps he's not really overstepping, but perhaps is appealing to you as legislators to say, perhaps this is something you should consider, because Starlink's parent company, SpaceX, did write to ICASA asking for this. Of course, the ICASA threw the rule book at them. But you don't think perhaps this is one way of him persuading you as legislators to say, why don't you consider this option as well? I did say that I've got all the sympathy in the world for Minister Malatsi, and I have no doubt that his heart is in the right place, and I've got no doubt that his objectives are noble. But the truth of the matter is that we are a rules-based order. We are a legally governed society, and we cannot allow Minister Malatsi to want to act like some North American country where one person can just wake up and change the laws. And as Parliament, we have a particular responsibility to those laws because they are created by the people of this country.
the transformation laws, for example, those are hard-won, hard-fought-for rights of the people of South Africa. Now, if Minister Malatsi seeks to achieve what he wants to achieve, he's going to have to ensure that he comes to Parliament. And this is an avenue that is open for him. I don't want to digress, but we had even told him on the SABC bill, here are the options that you have in order for you to achieve what you want. So in this case, he's going to have to put in amendments for the SITA Act. He's going to have to put in amendments for the Electronic Communications Act. And to be honest, he's going to have to justify and convince us why a law that so many South Africans hold dear must be changed in order to appease the business interests of one person called Elon Musk. But that we will deal with in Parliament when he comes with those amendments. But he cannot circumvent the law and he cannot cut corners, despite whatever pressures he may be under.
Khusela Diko, thank you very much for your time. She's the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technology. As I said during that interview, I have a couple of times spoken to the minister about the issue that involves Starlink in particular, and in recent weeks we've tried to get an interview with him. We haven't been successful so far, and we'll keep on trying.